Your little bakery smells like burnt sugar, my brother smirked last week, shaking his head. Don't expect anyone important to actually show up. His words echoed inside me as I stood by the frosted glass door on opening day, clutching a tray of still warm croissants. The ribbon was cut, the lights glowed, the air carried cinnamon and fresh yeast, yet the seats sat empty. Chairs aligned in neat rows like soldiers without orders, waiting for laughter that never arrived. Hi everyone, my name is Lena Grace, I'm 27. And if you think a family's silence can't cut deeper than knives, wait until you hear what mine did. I'd imagined this moment since I was 12, whisk in hand, sneaking into the kitchen at midnight while Mom scolded me for wasting flour. Back then, I thought maybe, just maybe, one day she'd brag about me the way she bragged about my brother. I thought Dad would clap the loudest, that my siblings would at least lift a glass in my name. But reality? Not one of them came. Not Mom, not Dad, not my brother, not even my cousin who eats for free whenever he visits. Instead, every single one of them dressed up, drove across town, and filled the banquet hall for my brother's promotion party. He became the star, while I stood here alone, balloons sagging above me, cake untouched, candles melting into nothing. The silence was worse than any insult. It hummed against the walls, pressed on my chest, and made even the steady hum of the fridge sound cruel. My hands trembled as I wiped down spotless counters, pretending I was busy, pretending the rejection didn't matter. But every swipe of the cloth was another reminder, I wasn't worth celebrating. Then, just as I switched off the bakery sign, that glowing open I had fought so hard to earn, my phone buzzed. It was Dad. His message was short, sharp, like a knife slid between ribs. We need to discuss the bakery. My breath caught. Not congratulations. Not sorry we missed it. Just those words, cold, deliberate, carrying a weight I couldn't yet name. And in that moment, with the night pressing against the windows and the smell of fading sugar clinging to my skin, I realized, whatever conversation was coming, it wasn't going to be about love. It was going to be about control. The screen burned in my hand as I read those 5 words again and again. We need to discuss the bakery. I wanted to throw the phone into the sink, drown it beneath suds and silence, but instead I typed 3 letters, why? His reply came instantly, as though he'd been waiting for me to fold. Not here. Tomorrow. Bring your numbers. Numbers. That's what I was reduced to, not a daughter, not a dreamer, not a baker who poured her soul into every loaf, but a ledger waiting to be judged. Sleep was impossible that night. The air smelled of yeast and betrayal, every tick of the clock another reminder that I had stood in a room built with my bare hands, alone. I saw the stream of family photos online, Dad lifting a champagne flute beside my brother, Mom glowing in sequins, everyone cheering. The caption under my brother's smile read, "Proud night for the family." For the family. The words knifed me. My bakery wasn't for the family, apparently. It was a side hobby, a phase, something to be tolerated until I gave it up. Morning came like ash, dull, heavy. I pulled my hair back, tucked invoices into a folder, and rehearsed lines in the mirror. It's profitable. It has potential. This bakery matters. My reflection didn't believe me. By the time I walked into Dad's office, my stomach churned with caffeine and dread. He didn't even look up. His desk smelled of cigar smoke, the blinds half shut against the world. My brother's framed certificate sat on the wall behind him, glowing like a crown. Finally, he leaned back, eyes sharp, voice calm but cold. Lena, I'm going to be direct. This bakery of yours, it's a liability. We need to talk about shutting it down before it drains the family name. The words crashed over me like boiling water. Shut it down? After years of saving, after nights spent scraping dough from my skin, after being abandoned on opening night? I gripped the folder tighter, my knuckles white. My heart screamed, but my lips only whispered. Why does my dream embarrass you so much? And he smiled. His smile was thin, almost rehearsed. He tapped his pen against the desk, each click a nail hammered into my chest. Because dreams don't pay bills, Lena, he said finally. Your brother brings stability. Respect. A future that benefits all of us. You bake muffins. Do you really think the world, or this family, can survive on muffins? The words hit harder than if he'd slapped me. My knees wanted to buckle, but I stayed upright. I forced myself to look around his office, polished wood shelves, leather chairs, certificates framed like weapons of pride. And in the middle of it all, a single unopened pastry box I had left on his desk 2 days earlier. Still sealed. Untouched. He didn't even notice when my eyes locked on it. "This isn't about you," he continued, leaning forward now, voice dripping with something darker. "It's about how your choices make us look. Investors, friends, colleagues, they see my daughter playing shopkeeper in some rundown storefront while her brother climbs the corporate ladder. What do you think they whisper, Lena?" The silence in the room was suffocating. My throat burned, but I forced words out. "Maybe they whisper that I'm trying. That I built something from nothing. That I didn't need your name or his title." His laugh was low, dismissive. "You're naive. What you've built is fragile. And fragile things break. You'll sell the bakery, we'll reinvest the money wisely, and you'll finally stop embarrassing us." Sell it. The phrase echoed like church bells. Sell the one place where I still felt whole. Sell the proof that I could stand alone. My nails dug into the folder of invoices, drawing half moons into the paper. I wanted to scream, to shatter every smug frame on his wall, but I swallowed it down. Because screaming would only prove him right. Instead, I stood slowly, the chair scraping against the floor with deliberate finality. My voice shook, but it carried, "You may see muffins. But one day, Dad, the world will see me. And when they do, it won't be your name they remember." His eyes narrowed, but for the first time, he didn't laugh. I left his office with my chest on fire, but his words clung like smoke I couldn't wash off. By the time I unlocked the bakery the next morning, a shadow already stretched across my door. My brother. He leaned casually against the window frame, scrolling his phone, that same smug grin plastered on his face. "Dad filled me in," he said without even looking up. "Finally realized your little cupcake shop isn't worth the family name." I froze, keys still in hand. "This has nothing to do with you." "Oh, but it does." He pocketed his phone and stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Your lease? Guess whose friend owns the property? One word from me and you'll be boxed out before the month ends. Dad doesn't want you humiliated, so he's giving you the chance to bow out gracefully. Sell it. Take the crumbs. Walk away." My stomach dropped, the air thick with yeast and betrayal. They weren't just doubting me, they were plotting. The bakery I had scrubbed, painted, filled with warmth was nothing but a pawn in their game of control. "Why are you doing this?" My voice cracked, but not with weakness, with anger. "You already have everything. The job, the title, their applause. Why crush me too?" His eyes hardened. "Because you've always been the weak link. And weak links snap. Better now than later." The door slammed behind him, the bell above it jingling like a cruel laugh. For a long moment I stood in the empty bakery, the morning light spilling across untouched pastries. My hands trembled, but slowly, I pressed them flat against the counter, grounding myself. I wouldn't let them take this from me. Not my flower-stained dream. Not the one place that was mine. But deep inside, I knew one truth. If I didn't fight back smart, they'd strip me of everything before the ovens even cooled. That night, as the last light dimmed across the shop, I whispered to myself like a vow. They want me silent. Instead, I'll make them choke on the sound of my success. The vow sat heavy in my chest, stronger than the sour bite of coffee I drank at dawn. For the first time, my anger wasn't scattered, it was sharp, precise, like the edge of a knife. If they wanted me gone, I'd have to outsmart them on their own battlefield. I spent the next week working silently, but my silence wasn't surrender. Each night, after serving the few loyal customers who trickled in, I stayed up with spreadsheets and recipes, learning to balance sugar with strategy. I called vendors, renegotiated contracts, and cut costs without cutting quality. Flour dust coated my laptop keys, but the numbers slowly began to sing. Still, the betrayal pulsed around me. Mom dropped by once, not to support me, but to deliver a warning wrapped in false sweetness. "Your father means well, Lena. He just doesn't want you to embarrass yourself. Or us." Her perfume clashed with the smell of rising bread, and her eyes scanned the half-empty shelves with pity. "Why don't you let this go?" Her words sliced deeper than her silence ever had. But I forced a smile, wiped flour from my apron, and answered, because this is the only thing that's mine. That night, I knew pity wouldn't be enough to break me, but paperwork might. If Dad wanted to crush me, he'd use contracts and signatures. So I dug into mine. Every clause, every hidden line of fine print in the lease, every receipt and invoice. And there it was. A flaw. Small, buried, but sharp enough to matter. The property owner's agreement wasn't as airtight as my brother believed. With the right lawyer, with the right push, I could turn their weapon back on them. The ovens hummed in the background, filling the shop with the smell of hope. I watched the dough rise, slow and steady, and thought, so will I. I wasn't ready to confront them yet. But soon. And when I did, it wouldn't be with tears or begging. It would be with proof they couldn't ignore. The floor became my secret weapon, tucked inside a folder just like the recipes I'd once scribbled at midnight. A single oversight, the kind men like my father and brother never thought a dreamer like me would notice. I met with a lawyer 2 days later, my apron still dusted with flour. He skimmed the lease, then glanced up, eyebrows raised. You realize this clause means your landlord can't terminate your contract without 30 months' notice? Not unless you default. Relief surged through me, warm and intoxicating. My brother's smug threat of one word and you'll be boxed out had no teeth. Not if I played this right. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. So I'm not as fragile as they think. The lawyer chuckled, sliding the papers back. Fragile? No. Careful, maybe. But careful can be powerful. That night, I baked with a fire I hadn't felt since the day before the betrayal. Cinnamon rolls glazed like gold, loaves rising proud, croissants flaking into perfection. Customers noticed. By word of mouth, people trickled in, first a curious neighbor, then a small crowd from the office building nearby. My shop, once silent, began to breathe again. But the storm was still circling. Dad arrived unannounced one evening, his presence filling the doorway like smoke. He looked at the growing line of customers, the hum of chatter, the glow of success rising where he expected failure. His jaw tightened. "We're still discussing this," he said flatly. "Don't get comfortable." I met his stare, my hands steady on the counter. For once, I didn't shrink. Discussion requires two people. All I hear is your decision. His eyes flickered. Anger? Surprise? Maybe both. He turned without buying a thing, the bell above the door jangling behind him. As silence returned, I wiped my hands on my apron and whispered under my breath, half to myself, half to the walls that had witnessed everything. They wanted me weak. Instead, I'm becoming undeniable. And for the first time, the bakery felt less like a burden and more like a weapon. The more my bakery filled with light, the darker my family's shadows grew. They couldn't stand it, the sight of customers laughing over lattes, of neighbors praising my bread as the best in town. What they thought would crumble had begun to bloom. It was my brother who struck next. He came in one morning, uninvited, his tie sharp, his cologne choking the air. He strolled between tables, smiling at customers like he owned the place, before leaning across the counter. His voice was low, meant only for me. "Dad says if you don't sell, he'll pull funding from the trust. That includes your equipment loan. You'll drown in debt before your ovens cool." My chest tightened, but I refused to let him see fear. Instead, I slid a folder across the counter. Inside were the papers my lawyer had prepared, the lease clause, financial projections, proof of profit growth. "Funny," I said, my tone ice. "Because according to this, neither of you can touch me." For the first time, his smirk faltered. He flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing. Customers were watching now, sensing tension. I let the silence stretch, savoring it. "This place is mine," I said clearly, voice steady enough for every ear in the room. "And no threat from you or Dad changes that." His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He stuffed the papers back, eyes narrowing. "You think one clause saves you? This isn't over." He stormed out, leaving the bell rattling behind him. A hush lingered, then an older woman at a table whispered, "Good for you, sweetheart." The entire bakery seemed to exhale with me. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I cleaned the counters with deliberate calm, every swipe a promise. My family thought they could erase me, but they underestimated what happens when you push someone who has nothing left to lose. The ovens purred, The bread rose, and so did I. I didn't know what Dad's final move would be. But I was ready. Because this time, I wasn't just defending a dream. I was preparing for war. The war came quietly. No slammed doors, no raised voices, just a letter slipped under my bakery door one morning, crisp and heavy with my father's signature. An official recommendation to potential investors in town, warning them that Lena Grace's bakery was unstable, financially unwise, and not supported by her family. It should have shattered me. Instead, I laughed. Because by then, I didn't need their approval. I had my proof, my customers, and most importantly, my independence. That very week, the local newspaper ran a feature, Against All Odds, the bakery that refused to close. A journalist who'd tasted my bread wrote about the lines forming out the door, about the resilience baked into every crust. My phone buzzed non-stop with orders, catering requests, invitations to food festivals. And when people asked why my own family hadn't attended my grand opening, I didn't flinch. I simply told the truth. They chose a promotion over my dream. But my customers chose me. Word spread. Not just of my pastries, but of my defiance. The story became bigger than bread. It became about a woman who refused to be silenced by her own blood. One evening, as the bakery glowed warm with light and chatter, my father appeared again. He stood in the doorway, watching the crowd, his face unreadable. For a moment, I thought he might finally say the words I had always longed to hear. Instead, he whispered, almost bitterly, "You did this without us." I met his eyes, steady, calm. "No, Dad. I did this because of you." He left without another word. And I turned back to my customers, their laughter rising like music, filling the place where silence once lived. That night, I locked the bakery with steady hands. The air smelled of cinnamon and victory. I didn't need their applause anymore. I had built something stronger than their approval, stronger than their threats. Something that was mine. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.